Hey guys, so these are the books that I read in February of 2021. I read 7 books in the month of February, and I am going to be doing them from least liked to most liked, and these are the books I read. The first book I'm starting out with is The Iron King by Julie Kagawa. This is a series that I read back a long time ago, maybe a decade ago or more. I really loved it back then, and I felt nostalgic for it when I saw it in the library recently. So you have Megan Chase, who is about to turn 16 when her little brother is kidnapped and taken to the fairy realm. She goes to fairy to help rescue him, and along the way they find out that there is this new Iron King, and I'm sure a lot of us know that iron is typically it's like their kryptonite. It kills them. It's one of the very few things that can actually kill a fairy, and so Megan deals with that. I think what I learned from reading this book, again, is that I am just not the target audience for this book anymore, obviously, but I do think it's an enjoyable book for people that are the target audience, and I still do recommend it to people, especially anyone maybe ages of 11 to 15 years old. This might be a really good book. It rubbed me the wrong way, even though in other series I'm more willing to put up with it. Ash, the love interest, is hundreds of years old, as are all the characters in this series. They are all hundreds of years old, except for Megan, who is about to turn 16, meaning she is 15 years old. She acts her age, she truly acts like a 15-year-old, and that makes her a child, which is what she is, and I think it just makes it extra weird when she starts to fall in love and date this boy who isn't a boy. He's a man, a multi-100-year-old man. It bothered me a lot. It's just not exactly how I remembered it to be, which, just means I've grown up, and doesn't mean the book is bad. It's just not my thing anymore. The next 2 books, I'm actually just gonna lump them together. I read the first 2 books in the ACOTAR series by Sarah J. Maas. I don't have the energy in me today to discuss all of my problems with Sarah J. Maas and her writing, but I will just say I gave A Court of Thorns and Roses, the first book, a 2-star rating. I think that it could have been a lot better for what it was and for how popular it is. We'll talk about that in another video, another day. And then A Court of Mist and Fury, I thought this book was way beyond better than the first book, but it was still a poorly written book. And honestly, this was back in February, of course, but I did last week finish the most recent book in this series, A Court of Silver Flames. And all I have to say is that Sarah J. Maas just writes the same book over and over again and keeps getting away with it somehow, and I don't understand that. She's like the Nicholas Sparks of fairy fantasy writing, and I don't understand anymore just how she keeps getting away with it, just writing the same shit over and over again. That's all I'll say about that for now. The next book I will be discussing is Beach Read by Emily Henry. This book got a lot of hype. You expect reading the blurb for this to be a cute romance book between 2 writers who live next to each other, and they both write different, she's a romance writer and he's, a dark, pessimistic writer. And so you expect it to be about that and them falling in love based on their differences or something. But it's actually more so about the loss of her father. So basically, January and Augustus were rivals in college, and many years later, January's father dies. And at his funeral, January discovers that her father had been having an affair for years throughout his marriage to her mother. And she ends up inheriting the lake house, the love affair lake house that her dad and his lover shared together. And so she's gonna go there and clean it out and get it ready to sell. And she's also going to write her upcoming novel while she's there. She realizes her neighbor is her old college rival, and then they reconnect, and it's really cute. It's really cool. I just think the first half of the novel dealt with something very serious and really cool. I think it was a lot deeper than I expected it to be. I expected this to be a surface romance rom-com type book based on the blurb, but then I read it and I was like, oh shit, this is real, this is really good, and I love it. It's deep, it's getting somewhere, we're really talking about shit and dealing with things. And then by the end of the book, I just felt it didn't live up to the first half of it. It kind of ended up as your standard typical romance book instead of what it was in the beginning. I don't know, the overhypeness of everyone's reviews put me up. And then when I started it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so different than what I thought. And then it was boom, let's go. And then the whole second half of the book, I was just like, wait a second, this is not what I wanted it to be. But I don't know, personal preference, I think, really there, but I didn't like the way Gus was described a lot of the time. Like, his eyes flashed all the time, and he was super brooding all the time, and his hands were very calloused all the time. That's mentioned quite a bit. He's described as just like this guy who lives in a lake house and writes all the time, and that's it. So I don't understand where his calloused hands come from. He needs lotion, because he's not doing anything that would callous his hands. Maybe I was just too distracted by like those descriptors. It bothered me. But anyway, I recommend reading the book if you're interested in it, because you probably would like it. Maybe I wasn't in the right mindset or the right mood when I finished this one. The next book in my February 2021 reads was Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. This is the first book in a series, I guess. We're really still not sure. I thought this was going to be a trilogy, but I actually recently heard that this is going to be a 5-book series, which would be super cool, but like I don't know any new information on the series. Leigh Bardugo is probably very busy right now with all of her Grisha-verse success. Super happy for her. But I want a sequel to this book. Ninth House is about Alex Stern, who was raised in LA. She drops out of high school. She gets involved in a bad crew of people, and by the age of 20, she is the sole survivor of a multiple homicide that is unsolved. And she's literally the only person who lived through it, which, you know, is a little sus. And she wakes up in the hospital and someone offers her a position as a student at Yale University. And obviously, you know, she does not belong at Yale University, but she's been offered this thing. And so she's like, you know what, for a start, let's go. Like, I'll go there. And so she goes to Yale. There are these 9 houses that each do their own thing. It's really like magical, and they do different stuff. The 9th house is the house that like supervises all the other houses and makes sure that they all stay in line, I think. She can see dead people, and Alex can see them all the time. So a lot of people in the 9th house do have the ability to see dead people when they do like certain rituals, but Alex just like sees them walking to class. It's really terrifying, but it's also very useful. And when a girl on campus gets murdered, Alex is concerned that it has something to do with one of the houses, and the people that are in charge don't seem to be too concerned about it, but she is, and she doesn't like that they aren't concerned. And there's a couple other things going on as well. So the thing with this book was that it was just a very info dumpy. Like it got a little boring, it was a little dull because it was just so much information. I think that we needed to be like immersed in the school, and so Leigh Bardugo dumped all this like facts and knowledge and just history, like all this stuff. It was cool, but at the same time it kind of took me out of it a little bit. It was like 50-50 interesting and boring. I really did enjoy the college atmosphere. I rarely read books that are set in a college setting, which was cool. I think Alex was a really interesting character. She is not the best person in the world, which is always one of my favorite things. She's like morally gray. She's done some pretty bad things, but at the same time, she's just had it really bad as well. And I really enjoy that. And I can't wait for a second book if it ever comes out. Hopefully that happens. The next book on my list is a book that I was so lucky to get an advanced reader's copy of, which is Malibu Rising by Jenkins Reid. This book is expected to be published on June 1st of 2021, which should be tomorrow based on when this video is published. Hopefully. First, thank you to Random House Publishing. I cannot believe that I got this arc. I felt so special, but at the same time, I know it's just, you know, basically random who gets these. This book follows a family through a 24-hour period. They're like a famous family. The dad was a famous singer. His name was Mick Riva. He is actually one of the husbands in The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Jenkins Reid. But you don't need to have read that to read this book. He marries this woman, has a bunch of kids with her, and he says, fuck them kids, and he leaves. It's a whole thing. To me, this story was just about what happens when someone who doesn't genuinely want kids has them anyway and decides not to raise them when he has to and just does it when it's convenient for him. And unfortunately, this is the case for a lot of families, and it's just about the effects of that and the whole nature versus nurture thing. You know, are we our parents? Can we change the things that we don't like about our parents that we see in ourselves? What parts of our parents are we willing to keep with us? And I just think that at the end of the day, you have to realize that people can only love you as much as they're capable of loving you. And you can either accept that love with those limitations involved, or you can decide that that love isn't enough for you and you get to choose to peace out. You know, you don't have to love your family. You don't have to be a part of someone's life who has hurt you or who has caused you trauma. You can leave them behind. And I think that that's really powerful. I think that this is a really good book. It affected me really deeply. I know that a lot of other people are already saying that they don't like this book because it isn't as powerful or as good or as amazingly written as Taylor Jenkins Reid's other books, but I personally really enjoyed this one. I think it was great. There were things in it that were a little and the ending was a little anticlimactic, but it really was a good book. I enjoyed it. And I think you would too. It comes out tomorrow, June 1st, so go get it. Then for the last book on my list, I can't even begin to explain it to you myself. This book was really good, and it was really funny. It was very well written, and I really, really, really loved how crazy it was. I mean, it's science fiction, it's batshit crazy plot, like just, it's crazy what happens in this book. It's a really hard book to follow because there are so many characters. I highly recommend, if you read this book, to mark the pages of where a character is introduced or to take notes as you write, which I know isn't everyone's favorite thing to do, but I had to do it in order to stay and follow along with it. I eventually did end up like learning the characters' names and loving them, even though it happened right before they die, because so many people die in this book. I can see why a lot of people wouldn't like it because it is very confusing. It does get hard to follow, and I think that the worst part about it is the world building. I think that it's just very heavy. It's a lot of stuff going on. It's so high fantasy. At the same time, it's just super great, and I was really entertained by it. I laughed a lot. The pop culture references are really good, and I think there's even more jokes in there that I definitely didn't catch because I was trying too hard to like focus on the story and keep up with what was happening, that I missed a lot of jokes. So I think it would be a lot of fun to go back and reread it and look at what I missed. So this book might be a little too unique for some readers, but at the same time, I think everyone should at least try it if you can get it, maybe at your library or borrow it from a friend. It was really good. I really enjoyed it, and it was my top read of February. Also, lesbian necromancers in space. That's all I should have said about this book, because that's all you need to know. So yeah, those are my February reads of 2021, and I hope you enjoyed this video. I am proud of myself for doing it and for putting it up. So yeah, that's all I got. See you guys next week. I might post a vlog next week. We'll see.